Good to see everyone today. Today is the day. You look great, Nikki. Good to see you, Della. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Very exciting today. For those of you who are not presenting, today is the mission showcase, and we are very excited to welcome everyone who has been working on projects for the last 8 weeks and probably beyond that for many of you. I just wanted to put a call out that will be live on Facebook today. So we have 80,000 followers on the Buckminster Fuller Institute Facebook page. So hopefully lots of people get to see about your project and learn about the projects that you are bringing forth. And yeah, I think, this is a fun culminating event for us. I would say take a breath. You guys will do great. It's going to be really fun. I have been waiting for 8 weeks to see this, so I'm sure many of you have also been waiting. And I just wanted to say a deep bow of gratitude to all of the work that you have done over the past 8 weeks. And I'm going to hand it over to Will to actually say a few words, and then we'll give it about 5 minutes or so before everybody comes on, and we'll get started.
Hey everyone, just doing some tinkering in the back end. Yeah, as Faith said, this is something we've both been looking forward to. I know everyone's put some hard work in. I know a lot of people aren't involved in missions as well. So yeah, I hope you can all stay till the end, because we'd love to wrap up the whole session and the whole program, the whole course properly, recap on everything we've learned. We've heard from so many people, there's been so many discussions. So we'll get a chance to really dive into that together and close out the session. And we will begin the presentations. I'm excited.
So we are now live on Facebook. So for all of you watching on Facebook Live, we want to welcome you to the Trimtab Space Camp Mission Showcase. This is the 8-week culmination of many of these missions that have come together after 8 weeks of learning from multiple different key change makers that have worked in the climate space for many, many years. This is a chance for them to work with multiple different community members and polymaths and people that have helped them build the projects that they've worked on, either prior to coming to this course or during this course. And during this course, we've been diving into everything from systems thinking and climate stabilization to climate finance 101, to learning about how to take action within the climate space in multiple different ways. And they've integrated a lot of these frameworks and tools into their projects. And today we get a chance to learn from them. So I'm going to say, take it away, Della. Or actually, Will, do you want to say something before Della goes on? Sorry.
Only just to agree with you. It's been such a wonderful experience, just working even just loosely with you all and getting glimpses of what you have been working on. And I am excited to hear more. So yeah, Della Burford, do you want to take it away and let me know when you want to share screen?
Good. Okay, I'm going to be presenting a little bit about a book called Earth Action, and I created the editing of the book in the Space Camp. The first edition of Earth Action book was done in a Space Camp 1.5 years ago, and now I've updated it with some climate information. And Will, I think you've got some slides you're going to show of the Earth Action, and I'll just talk a little bit about them. Have you got the slides? No?
I do, sorry.
Okay, there you go. Can you hear me? This is
Loud and
a
clear.
little bit at the beginning of the Earth Action book, and the dedication is to Buckminster Fuller. And I had a connection with him, a very strong connection in 1979. This is the index of the book, which includes the elements and all sorts of different things to do, dance things, art things, activities of many kinds. This is some of the little people in the book. The Earth Seed, who tells the secret of the earth. It goes into some activities, and what I've included is encourage regenerative agriculture as the additional activity that I added in this edit after hearing Brian and Carl speaking. There's lots of nature things, the Maxium houses, water activities is another element that goes into talking about the water cycles, the cycles of water. I go into the cycles, and encouraging marine restoration is the thing I had added to this in this space camp after hearing Brian speaking. And that was great. And then I go into air and as the element of air and how important it is to breathe and make a climate change solution poster I've included, which includes some of the One Earth's things that they try to do for the Earth. And I mentioned the biosphere in Montreal since I'm in Canada, and it goes into a whole section, a whole thing on our climate change. The starboard section of the book is about regenerative energy, which of course is a very important part of climate change. And I've included Global Energy Network Institute's information from Peter Meissen, which I did include in the first edition, but I just included a little bit more. And the World Energy Game Collage, which was in the first edition, I've expanded a little bit. And kids making an art project about the World Game. And the Demaxium map is part of it. So it's got lots of different things to do to show our positive feelings about the environment and how we love it and what we can do to take care of it, how we can change our way of being to do this. I've included, of course, William Meyerhoff has been brainstorming this with me, and thank goodness for him, because it's good to talk to somebody about it. He did a workshop in Los Angeles and in November around some of the activities in the guide, which are his favorite geometric shapes he makes with children. You can make books, you can do puppet shows, and when you get your ideas together from the guide, you can create all these wonderful things. And that's what it's all about. It's about being creative. This is the environment puppet play, for example, which includes some of the domed features in it. I thanked additional people in this program as well, and that's great. So that's it. Yeah, so thank you so much. So you can get it on Amazon. The new edition will be available in about 3 weeks' time. I still have to work with the printer on it and so on. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone that's part of this group.
Up next is Bente Milton with the New World Game.
Yes, thank you so much. So maybe you could allow me to share my screen, Will, because just to check if the technology is working as we would like it to.
Faith, you're going to have to do that.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. And while I'm struggling maybe a little bit to get the technology to work, I would like to take time to thank you, the Buckminster Fuller Institute, for organizing this space camp, and especially the wonderful facilitators, Faith and Will, and the inspiring presenters that kind of brought so much extra to the project I've been developing. And last but not least, the people who stepped in to support the mission. I'm extremely grateful for that and for them. So let's see if I can get it to work on like a slideshow. I don't know if you get the full image now.
That's
Wonderful.
great.
Yes.
Okay, so of course, my mission is also inspired by Buckminster Fuller, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with this famous quote about making the world work for 100% of humanity. And inspired by his studies of war games at the US Navy school, Buckminster Fuller came up with this audacious idea. Sort of as an answer to that, he wanted to propose a world peace game, and it was designed to address the real enemies of humanity, poverty, inequality, our abuse of resources, and our tendency to fight each other, which is not very good when you share the same home in the universe. At that time, let me just go back for a second, because Bucky was working with a lot of students. I think it was almost 350,000 people who engaged in a series of workshops, and in 38, 39 different countries. But that was back in the days when you had to sort of work hands-on without all the devices that we have today. So now the slide with these young digital natives comes up, because this is a new generation equipped with the tools and the skills we need to actually connect and collaborate across borders. The unfortunate thing, seen from my perspective, is that millions of them are spending their time playing war games inside virtual worlds. Actually, the numbers are very impressive. I think according to the latest statistics, there's approximately 3.09 billion active gamers in the world today. Our idea is to tap into that potential and propose a new world game designed to reach and engage the next generation. And we want to start out by asking the question, what does a world that works for everyone look like to you, as an invitation to become actively engaged? There are 4 cornerstones of the initiative: virtual worlds, synergy platform that will enable change makers to connect and collaborate for impact, would be the cooperating manual that we'll learn about later. A global network of impact labs in the real physical world, engaging local stakeholders in the implementation of solution, is a very important cornerstone. And then the high-profile documentary series I'm working on, which is aimed to reach a broad global audience. The virtual world we want to create is a simulation of the future we want. It's possible to create that kind of environment today in a game engine called Unreal Engine 5. I can't go into details because there's no time, but you can look it out. It's pretty amazing. Let's see if the slide will change. Yeah, the virtual world is a place to engage in anticipatory design science, and also to come together to co-create whole system solutions. And the project is being developed in collaboration with a dream team of creative frontrunners. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to mention them all, but I'll share this list where they are listed in alphabetical order, putting myself on top of the list, but you can always get back to that if you want to check it out. Our mission is to hatch a new world that works for all of humanity, and very importantly, also for all of life. So we kind of want to take things to the next level and look at a regenerative development. So for more information, please contact me. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also my mail is milton@miltonmedia.com. Did I make it within the time frame, or?
You were spot on. Well done, thank you. And I apologize for such a chaotic introduction there. I had noises coming from everywhere, and it's really not what you want when you're live to so many people. But that was great, thank you. Next up, Nikki Wall.
Okay, so hello, my fellow spaceship earthers. I'm excited to be here with you today. And it's fun that I get to go right after Bunty and what she was talking about and saying, because for me, as we focus on climate stabilization and regenerative efforts for our planet, it's important to realize the need for social regeneration as a foundation of human cohesion to make it possible to sustain all of those environmental regeneration efforts. So after decades of food security and activism, food security efforts and activism, I mostly was just seeing palliative options that really only helped people suffer another day while remaining dependent on others. So it became obvious to me that new food security efforts and systems needed to be based on biomimicry, to be regenerative and create interdependence while bringing shifts in consciousness and around our current economies and towards alternative and sacred economies. So Loving Eats is what I've come up with my co-founders. It's a for-profit benefit corporation that provides a tool for hyper-local communities that they can use for a multi-stakeholder collaboration so they can start to thrive together in an interdependent way while shifting cultural views around gifting, sharing, generosity, and gratitude. So we have been building a trust-based system on a gamified platform that offers a food-based circular gift economy and experience where everyone involved has experiences a positive impact. We bring existing restaurant patrons, privately owned restaurants, local charities, community leaders, and food insecure individuals together so they can quickly start mitigating hunger and food waste. So with each purchased meal, purchased and gifted meal by patrons of an independently owned restaurant or any of our app users, the giver brings more revenue to the restaurant, increased mission efficacy and funding opportunities for local charities, as well as boots on the ground leaders, and one less hungry person a day. So Loving Eats platform allows for scaling and palpable experiences with users that are able to actually see and understand the depth of their impact, regardless of their role in each of those transactions, as well as enabling meaningful interactions with one another in a multiple way. And as a side note, I want to mention that we also have tech-free options to make sure that nobody gets left behind if they don't have the ability or proper access to tech. And so that's also important because the success of our mission does not wholly rely on anyone giving or receiving a meal just through the app. So we are partially funded and have been designing and developing for 3 years, including a successful product test. And as we step into the new phase, we're launching a brief market test in the city of Burbank, California, my hometown, with the help of several local supporters. And after that, we'll start scaling nationally as sustainably as we can, and eventually internationally with some strategic locations. As we grow, our expanded vision provides more and will include a back-end produce market of local growers and other from the ground to the ground approaches. And our missions give back program includes 20% of our profits protected to support regenerative land and agriculture projects, with most of the funds going to BFI, the Buckminster Fuller Institute's Regenerosity program. And this is our way of designing technology so that humans can see the cost equation differently. We're currently hiring for several positions, including on-the-ground ambassadors and a grant writer. We're also seeking aligned corporate sponsors, community partners, and impact investors that want to support our mission, as well as people interested in contributing to various parts of our crowdfunding launch event that comes at the end of our market test. And so, yeah, thank you so much for making space in your heart and mind to learn about us today. It really means a world to me that I can share this mission and collaborate with the BFI community, because it truly understands this mission and the others on here. They're exactly what's needed to make the world work for all life on it in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of ecological offense possible, and create systems that make the old ones obsolete. So we're excited to start feeding it forward with you. And we really hope that you'll participate in the mission in your local community. So please start by visiting lovingeats.com to subscribe for future updates. And you can also reach out to us through the site's contact page or send an email directly to info@lovingeats.com. And that's it. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Was I in time? Did I do it?
Slightly over, but I will give it to you. It was great.
Okay.
And now we have BFI's own Felicia.
Okay, 5 minutes. So the cooperating manual for Spaceship Earth, Space Camp 2022, mission updates and improvements. The cooperating manual for Spaceship Earth is, number 1, a work in progress. So it was kind of based on this idea of the operating manual for Spaceship Earth, which for those of you who don't know, was originally published in 1969, a book by Buckminster Fuller, and this image is of the 2015 edition. It was started in 2019 with several dozen people across multiple gatherings who have worked on it together and created extensive documentation. And in 2022, it was fairly dormant. Just to give you a little bit more context, this is a quote from a 2019 Hack for Earth presentation by Amanda Joy Ravenhill, former BFI executive director, who said, "The cooperating manual is here to give us a clear sense of community-sourced systems interventions for how to navigate this critical path. Navigating each chapter will lead you to honest, clear scientific information on the solutions, the stories of a future that works for 100% of life. The manual is inclusive, bringing in diverse voices and perspectives, as well as making the content accessible to all." So the cooperative manual project has had 2 big pieces and chapters and databases, and we really, for this mission purpose, just focused on the database. That's what we'll be focusing on for the remainder of this short presentation. And this graphic shows you 4 areas of the work: back-end development, new data entry, existing data cleanup, and project visibility. And I'm going to hand it over to Mark Smith for a moment to share 1 minute of notes on those pieces. Mark.
Great. So back-end development, we recognize that project budget and financing need to be focused on. Hosting, URL, location, and database, and the user interface and experience design. For new data entry, the questions became who can make entries, where and when, a more robust categories and ability to sort, ease of use to enter and search for duplicates. With existing data cleanup, Nikki dug in and we realized how much scrubbing for duplicates and irrelevant entries needed to be tended to, completing descriptions and missing data, and then update categories and relevance to whom. And then for project visibility, clarity in the mission statement and goals, brand awareness, is it stay with this name, and relevance, and then marketing to whom and for what usage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So just to give you a few little specific pieces relevant to what Mark was just saying, in September 2022, when we picked it up, the cooperative manual project was in, you could say, something like beta or alpha stage. There was about 60 resource entries that needed vetting, and we didn't know of people who were going to spaceshipeearth.live to actually pull information out as opposed to contributing information in. And as of now, December, 2 buttons at the right of the top, right at the top, to search or submit with regard to the database. All entries awaiting vetting have been submitted. Thank you, Nikki, as Mark mentioned. And still an open question, have any of us actually gone to spaceshipeearth.live to use it? And so just to give you a visual, we added a resource database page, changed the header up here, and added those 2 buttons. So a summary of the suggestions from the Space Camp group in terms of potential moving forward activities: market research, what is already out there with an overlapping mission, and we made a big long list that we put together as our group. Significant user interface challenges / usability. So the Airtable display and search function is challenging to use or to kind of know where to look if you're not familiar with it. Paragraph text is too small, something we can change but have not yet, and then etc. User interface contribution ideas. Enter your mission in the cooperative manual database at spaceshipeearth.live if you have a URL, or if you're involved in any other project or work, feel free to go to spaceshipeearth.live and enter it. The database needs a more solid, clean, thoughtful taxonomy. This is a quote from Nikki: "With so many young people desperate to learn and help right now, we really should make the database of resources accessible to 8th grade and up, but also for academia as well." And then finally, on the home page, it would be great to highlight the total number of entries, the date of the most recent entries, so people have a sense of how fresh the content is, and the ability to view the most recent entries. maybe a random project highlighter, which would inspire people to want to add their project. And the resource entry needs to be far easier. I timed myself once and it took like 7 to 10 minutes to enter one resource. These are our mission participants. Thank you, everybody. And thanks to everybody else.
Amazing, thank you. Now we're going to hear from Mark Roast.
I'm Mark Roost with Cooperating Manual for Spaceship Earth mission, doing a separate presentation. My goal is to help people see where their mission and other missions fit with each other and in the world. My asks are that you explore the display I've created to see where your mission fits with the other elements, and that you both critique it where needed and extend it with your contributions. You could do this individually or in groups. Both are welcome. The display is in the form of a mind map, a diagram that shows how concepts are related to each other. I'm using the tree of life as a metaphor to help organize the mind map. You should see an image of a tree showing the branches, trunk, and roots. The roots and branches each provide nutrients for the tree. The trunk holds up the branches and passes different nutrients back and forth between the roots and the branches. The main branches divide into smaller ones, which support leaves. Switching to the mind map, and this is where you want to switch to the mind map now? Great. And can we blow that up to be full screen? Okay. You can see a box representing the trunk in the lower middle. The row of triangles below represents the roots or foundations of the life support systems in an economy. The triangle on the right suggests that we should return to the commons as a way of using resources to serve everyone in a community. It says all in the commons, but the others, ecosystems, agriculture, habitations, and such, are main chunks. Arrow lines between the triangles and the boxes indicate the direction of inputs of energy, nutrients, organization, and information. The rectangles below the triangles represent missions, projects, and processes that contribute to the components of the life support systems. 3 missions are shown, along with placeholders for more. Above the trunk, rectangles represent main branches. The first row of rectangles above the trunk includes movements and projects that are working in parallel to heal and restore right connections among people and nature. The rectangles above the first row of branches are more specific initiatives. Some of them support the movements below. The clouds in this row are the Cooperating Manual for Spaceship Earth, which lives in the cloud, and then all of the social media that support a paradigm shift to stabilize climate and life support systems, and two, aid for all people impacted by climate and the economies that have destabilized it. Notice that this cloud is above the movement to re-indigenize, reconcile, and help heal each other, one of the main branches of the tree. It will help give us the possibility of stabilizing climate. The top row includes 2 missions, 2 placeholders, and 4 initiatives that are or will be in the cloud. And these initiatives, the first one is on the left is a sustainable economy knowledge base. And this is intended to be like Geoscope, like the Dymaxion thing, but basically also like Google Earth, with a knowledge base that's a geographic information system at its foundation, lots of layers showing both natural systems and human systems, and tools to enable people to design sustainable economies at a regional, an eco-region scale. And there are about 823 or 867 ecosystems, ecoregions, and they're comprised of consistent patterns of ecosystems. So they make a kind of a good scale for designing a sustainable economy that fits the natural world and lives off its surpluses. The next one, other information and communication technologies. That's the whole world of that stuff. And then we have the VISTA Hospital and Clinic Information Management System, which runs the VA hospitals, can also be used to run a small city because a large hospital is like a small city. And then the healthcare knowledge base is an idea of putting together the ways of healing both classic and indigenous, and then including allopathic after the fact so that it doesn't dominate the others. And then new world game visualization as a tool for transformation. That can grow and that can be interacting with the sustainable economy knowledge base. Now you'll see some different missions here, like Earth Action, creative ways to love and protect the Earth, Bug Factory, soldier flies free up water, yield protein crop, Global Energy Network Institute, interconnecting global renewable energy resources, and the Cooperating Manual for Spaceship Earth, and the social media for paradigm shift, and etc. Does anybody have any questions at this point? And how much time do I have left, Will?
A minute.
A minute? Okay. So let's see, let's just go over a few other missions. So getting back to the ask here, let's do that actually. The ask is that you explore this thing. We'll try to make it readily available, that you explore the map and find out where your mission is and look around it and see what other things are related to it. And then give feedback, like, is it in the right place? You know, are there other things that you would like to see related to it? Do you have a version that would be a version of the map that could be a second layer that would be more detailed? So there might be a whole another mind map that relates to your mission, or that relates to one of the main branches or roots of this diagram. And there would be. This is sort of like the top layer. This is one way of gaining access to a knowledge base for designing sustainable economies, for example. So that's sort of what I'm looking for here.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Hey. Next up, I believe, is Bobby. Bobby
Terrific.
Fish.
Delighted to speak with you all, and thank you so much for joining in today in this gathering. I wanted to see, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So we've been working on backcasting from a solarpunk future. Why solarpunk? It's the apex of a future in which humans and biodiversity are thriving. But can we steer Spaceship Earth towards a solarpunk future? We looked at this at different levels. This was an example. Novel AI created the top one when I asked it, what are the combinations of fields that are missing to get to a regenerative future? It came up with this example. And then I fed that into Perplexity, which uses a search to then feed that into GPT-3, and identified that it had a further integration of that. And if we look further, the feedback loop can be solipsistic. In this example, it's quoting back to me things that I said in the title of an event a year ago in that example, see number 2 and 3. But it also can extend what we could do. For example, it thought feeding in information about climate change talks that we lacked a great climate change people's collaboratory. And it also, when I fed it the great positive deviance engine, it came back saying that we needed a universal design engine for the betterment of human, fish, and fauna. And if you feed that back in to Perplexity, it would show certain historical things to base on positive deviance. But you can also connect that at different levels. So if we sorry, I went the wrong direction. So universal design, it found more background to those ideals. So if we use AI to backcast, we can gain autonomy because of the interdisciplinary diversity of AI and us. We can find ikigai roles for ourselves, overlap between what we love to do, what we're exceptional at doing. And through this, we can work towards a solarpunk future. But how would there be enough interdisciplinary collaboration with AI to have that happen? Well, we can imagine a future like that. And we can also work from the perspective of specific institutional design or institutional gaps. So what I'm just going to summarize is that we think that AI can be used to help an individual craft a future scenario for themselves. can also be used in novel institutional design of institutions that are missing in our current world that would let us reach a regenerative future. It can upgrade draft concepts that we have in mind, but it can also help us integrate across disciplines that aren't talking to each other. We think it can also, interestingly, help position accessibly fields that should be talking to each other that haven't yet converged and cross-referenced in profound and transformational ways. The essence of this is that it's not that the AI knows what we can't know, it's that it's difficult to be cumulative with millions of people, and human processes for that have not been able to get us the biodiversity regenerative future that we crave and wish for, and which everyone mostly is thriving, and in which people can each work on what they love and all of these wishes. And so the nice thing is the AI's engines don't say you're being too hopeful. It says, well, you know, maybe this would be a realistic path here or there, or, you know, here's a portal to that alternative future over here. And so I think that what I'm seizing on this general recommendation for is the same way self-determination theory says that our autonomy is proportionate to the interdisciplinary diversity and degree of camaraderie among humans historically. I think it's also true in terms of whether we can collaborate with AI in ways that let us access apex alternative futures and access them from where we are. It's sort of the way to defeat that idiom of, if you wanted to go there, you wouldn't start from here, and rather say, wherever we are, can we get to a future that is fit for our future selves? And I'm Bobby from Crowd Doing. In the context of this, it's a generative or regenerative AI lab, and would love to work backwards from solarpunk futures in which the institutions that are missing exist, the disciplines are bridged that need to be bridged, and the social innovation gaps are addressed. And I'd welcome to be in dialogue with any of you who care about that manifestation happening more quickly, because if the solarpunk future happens fast enough that we can enjoy it, we are all going to be the co-beneficiaries. Thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you, Bobby. That was great. And I love your t-shirt as well. So next up, Peter Mason.
Thank you for the opportunity again to participate in this. I've been doing our work for 30 years, so our career, and we're actually looking for the title of this this project was looking for new leadership for the Global Energy Network Institute. So let me, for those of you that I don't know, a very quick introduction. Genie is a nonprofit 501c3 founded 30 years ago to focus on Bucky's #1 strategy for the world. And the reason I say that, if you've read Critical Path on page 206, he describes the world game and why electrical energy is the foundation of our society. We clearly know its critical nature when we lose it. And so he basically said the #1 strategy for the world out of the world game work was to link renewable energy resources globally, a high voltage global electric energy grid, tapping the abundant renewable energy resources of our world: wind, solar, geothermal, hydro, biomass, and the ocean energies. So that one statement launched me into this work 30 years ago. I had seen Bucky speak, and I knew his integrity and that he wouldn't say that lightly. So the world game, as you've all heard, is really asking the long-term question: how do we make the world work for everybody? And if you provide sufficient electrical energy to everybody in the world, the minimum being 2,000 kilowatt hours per capita per year, you can actually get everybody out of poverty. You can have electrical or have running water for people, whether it be at a large scale or at a small scale. So the benefits listed here on the site of this one strategy are enormous. So if you link grids across borders, you're fostering peace, cooperation between neighboring nations. It's just bad business to shoot your customer or your supplier on a 24-hour trading relationship. You get electricity to people for the first time. It reduces their hunger because they can now provide for themselves and have adequate water needs. You transition away from fossil fuels to renewables, so it is a very proactive way to get us off of the most polluting of our energy resources, because there is plenty of renewables on the planet. Certainly enables healthcare, clean water, and as you get everybody electricity, it puts a stabilization on population growth. So huge benefits. This is a multi-thousand page website with enormous research, maps of renewable resources around the world, endorsements from 7 Nobel Peace Prize laureates. I will show you one other page that we put together that tries to tell the story in one page. It says, here's an interconnected high voltage system between countries around the world using the map. The different colors of the dots each represents 1% of humanity. The red dots have a lot less electrical energy, less than 2,000, and the green dots have about over 6,000. So this is a one visual look at what we've been trying to tell the story of for 30 years. I'm going to say I'm running out of steam personally, and our staff has been dispersed as of COVID. We have a very rich and credible history on this. I thank you for the people who have mentioned this a couple of times. I've met presidents and prime ministers, spoken at conferences around the world. There is a body of work that you stand the shoulders on. And we're looking for some people that would like to take this over and run with it. I have a next project that I'm moving forward myself, also in Bucky's world. And so we're trying to find people that are probably Bucky related, engineering and IT specialty, that would like to take something that is just as needed today, even more so than it was. Actually, it's more needed today because of the number of people, and the climate change is happening faster than we ever have seen. So we are looking for new leadership. That's the message for this work. Happy to talk with anybody. You can find our contact details on our website there, and appreciate the time. Thank you, Will. And thanks all the staff as well.
Thank you. And I'm sure you're going to get a few bites for that. It sounds incredible. I'm kind of upset that we all don't have more time to share. So please, can all presenters share the resources and any information in the chat as well? I definitely want to read up, as I'm sure everyone else will as well. Next up, Kurt McNamara.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm Kurt, and this project was Trimtab for Climate, and I had 3 great partners: Aaron Douglas, Michael Pond, and Christian Shearer. All right, so what is a Trimtab? As most of us are aware, it's a little rudder it's really a little rudder on the edge of a rudder. Bucky thought it was a great metaphor for change, because if you move this Trimtab, this very small thing, it can move a much bigger rudder and move an entire ship. So the rudder on a Queen Mary might be as big as my house and very difficult to move. But if you move this Trimtab, you create what's called a low pressure zone. And as you do so, the whole rudder moves and the whole ship moves. And of course, he also pointed out, with the Trimtab, you steer from the rear. You can't push systems around from the front. So a couple of cards I made last year trying to explain the concept of Trimtab. And to me, it's the leverage. And so there you have one view of leverage. You've got a person at one end and a system at the other. Here's a little better one. It turns out that many times we can't swim up to the back of a ship and move the Trimtab ourselves. What we want to do is find out who is controlling that Trimtab and Trimtab them. And that means sort of affecting their head. And so this metaphorical view is that same kind of an idea, but made a little more personal. It kind of seems like storytelling. One of the things that this work shows you is that For a lever to work, there has to be what I'm calling a pivot or a fulcrum. It has to be closer to the person that you're trying to change. What does that mean? I can't just use ideas that are dear to me. I won't be very effective. I need to have something that's dear or close to the people I'm working with to make it happen. So what's a good example of this? I think the Project Drawdown work, in particular, this new thing of climate solutions at work, that we can all be trim tabs in our work. And you've seen this throughout the Space Camp, right? As you move your money to work for different, better projects, you're trim tabbing them. As you work on brand new enterprises, you're actually maybe creating a new model. That was another one of Bucky's ways of system change, but you're doing it probably in a trim tabbish way. Okay, so then if we're going to trim tab climate, and we're talking about changing the direction of the ship, well, it's not just the person with their hands on the rudder, right? Because they're taking directions from probably a pilot who has plotted a course, and then somebody else who set a goal. And is that goal people, planet, or profit? And what things does it consider? What things does it consider about icebergs, and et cetera? So we talk about that, and then we say, well, are all these ships just really big, monolithic? I don't think so. Most of the ships are actually different sizes of ships and a whole little fleet of ships. And even in fossil fuel, you have multiple production companies, lots of consumers, obviously, and et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, there's movements to replace fossil fuel with other forms of energy. And so there's many ways to consider trim tabbing climate, I guess is what we're saying. And of course, the same is true of agriculture and travel. What areas can we trim tab? Well, oh my goodness. Human choice is a big one, right? If you think back to that trim tabs at work, in our choices and our actions, we're trim tabbing. We can actually trim tab ourselves as well. We can do it in design, in the way that we do things to make them more efficient. Clearly, Bucky did that a lot in education, leadership, decision-making, and et cetera. One of the metaphors we used in the project was, can we capture some of this information as patterns? And this is the pattern idea of Christopher Alexander. He basically, and others, have said that a pattern consists of some sort of a context or a situation, a couple of opposing forces, and then a way to resolve those. And so, for example, if it's your home and you're trying to contribute to reduction in CO2 emissions, you bounce off conflicting things of comfort, right? And you might use tools like setback thermostats and insulation and heat pumps, et cetera. There's many other aspects to it as well. And then this one is just showing that this is you. If you're a boat, and oops, if you're a boat, you're subject to waves. You're also subject to the wind and other forces. You have these sails you can bring up or down, you can move around, you have the rudder, and you have the trim tab. So this is a way to think about yourself and all your activities. Often we're caught between opposing forces, aren't we? Maybe work says one thing, but our heart says another. Maybe family has one set of needs for us, and yet we really want to finish that project tonight. So just a good way to think about it, and to think about, sometimes we lift our sails, we go with the forces that are out there, and sometimes we tack across them because it's not making sense. So hopefully I zoomed through in less than 5, and if that's true, then I'd like, I think Aaron and Michael and Christian are on, and if they would like to say something to add to it, that would be great. I've taken them by surprise probably, but
maybe, and we're a little bit over as well.
All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you, Kurt. Lauren Innes.
Before we go, Kurt, can you put your link into the chat of the website?
Yep, will do.
Okay. So our mission is looking at how to create a regenerative financial model for global weaving. And we're specifically using regeneration pollination as the case study for this. Our team working on this mission includes myself, Nikki Wall, Ajay Talam, Rupert Toombs, David Witzel, and Richard Ramsey. We've observed that the regeneration movement is still pretty siloed. The movement is also not well resourced, and many initiatives don't have financial models that can truly be sustained. Regeneration Pollination is a fiscally sponsored, volunteer-run nonprofit and volunteer burnout does happen, and we want to avoid this. We acknowledge that nonprofit models as it stands have its limitations. So how can initiatives not just sustain themselves financially, but be financially regenerative as well? Regeneration pollination was dreamt into being in order to help weave, cross-pollinate, and bridge some of the gap. Regeneration pollination creates a space for cross-pollination to happen. Social pollination, like biological pollination, allows for flow and exchange of resources between individuals, like the bee bringing pollen from flower to flower. And if we connect people from around the world who are working on regeneration through our virtual networking events, which happen 3 times a month for different time zones, people and projects will be made visible to others, and increased connections increase the possibilities of those people and projects to get the resourcing they need to further their work, helping further weave together the fabric of the mycelial layer of the global regeneration movement. Our partners help with cross-pollination by sharing about our events in their networks, which helps further diversify the kinds of people who come and resources exchange. A couple of our pollinating partners are here and a part of the BFI missions, including Loving Eats and Crowd Doing. Since starting in April 2020, we've grown quite a bit, hosting 80 events, weaving over 10,000 connections, and hosting over 1,600 attendees from over 80 countries. Our goals coming into Trimtab Space Camp were to identify financial models that would be regenerative for our work, have a plan on how to execute such models, and to gain new partnerships. Some nuggets from the sessions include having a concrete ask when approaching funders, having a diverse team with good connections, especially those connected to people with money, participating in accelerators like Y Combinator, and also a lot of what was shared in the camp sessions can't necessarily be applied to us per se, given the type of work we do. The theme of this camp is climate stabilization, and climate isn't the main focus of our work, though we support people who do work in this space, and regeneration addresses the wider problem beyond climate. When we started working on the mission, we reviewed the difference between being a nonprofit or a business and the benefits and drawbacks of each. Regeneration pollination spun out from the Global Regeneration Collab and became a fiscally sponsored project of Inquiring Systems over a year ago. And we've been volunteer run since 2020. And as I mentioned before, we want to avoid burnout, as being volunteer run can have its limitations. So we wanted to explore what ways we can better fund our work. We then went on to identify different funding. First, starting with what we currently do: donations, sponsorships, and grants. And we identified other funding options as well, including crowdfunding, paid events, licensing, content for purchase, and in-house pollination events. Then we analyzed our options. Now we've identified what we think could work, or at least can get us sustained financially, continuing with what we've currently been doing to fund our work, and also trying out crowdfunding, paid events, and in-house pollination events, which are essentially offering pollination events for communities, businesses, foundations, and organizations, which would help cross-pollination across departments. We've also just tested out offering 2 different types of events, which include a bilingual French-English event and a special themed event, which we just had this past Friday, which was on solar punk, which Bobby helped host. And we've had for both of these events 60 attendees. So we're wanting to further trial exploring these options in a paid format. And we'll be looking for funding to further develop the in-house pollination events. Licensing and content for purchaser options that we can explore at a later date. And ultimately, we thought that we might have worked out a regenerative model in 6 weeks, but in reality, it takes a lot longer. So what's next is to continue exploring and testing these options. And so we're looking for more people and organizations to partner with us. You can help by sponsoring, becoming an event host, volunteering, joining our advisory board, or helping spread the word about our events. And by partnering with us, you'll increase the visibility of your work at our events through our marketing channels, while also strengthening the global regeneration movement. We would also love more input on these models that we talked about today. So please fill out our survey, which we'll put in the chat, and let us know if you'd like to contribute to this work, and let us know which financial options you think might be the most viable for us. Also, big thanks to our mission team. So do reach out. You can reach us at info@regenerationpollination.earth. Come to one of our events, partner with us, and help us weave and strengthen the global regeneration movement. Thank you.
That's amazing. Those slides are beautiful too. Stephen Bow, Hello.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll just start sharing my screen and we can get going. Great. So I'm a member of the Design Science Studio, and I've been a member and a leader of that, some of those groups in our pods over the last couple of years. So I just wanted to share what's been happening with the Design Science Studio over the last little while. Over the summer, our leaders, Roxy Shohade and Nico Alcala, were in a really terrible car accident. And so what we've been doing in the wake of that is trying to figure out, well, how do we gather in support of their grief and their injuries and the recovery process, just being part of the gathering of friends and family that are helping out with just being there. And so what happened at the same time was I found myself with an injury, and so I injured my ankle that next day. But what we did, and as we were all in the process of slowing down and resting and healing, is that we formed something called the Design Science Synergy. And so the reason why I'm showing you this image of a hummingbird is because there was a hummingbird as I was sitting on a hill that just flew up from the valley and then just hovered over my left shoulder. And this brought to mind something that happened in the Design Science Studio when Roxy was talking with one of our visionary presenters, and the visionary presenter, Roxy's conversation partner, said, "Oh," as Roxy was responding to, "There's a hummingbird just hovering there at my window," and so the comment was, "Well, oh, that's my spirit animal." So what this turned into was this experience for me of recognizing that I was there in the forest trying to connect to the earth, and here was the earth responding with this animal, and what that led to was this really personal integration of Mark Smith, Veronica Anderson, and myself, just joining to form this Design Science Synergy to be in support of our friends. And we found in that meeting of minds and hearts, it was just a way to help us witness our own grief and our own process of recovery. And what that has led to is this kind of process that we've gone into where we're moving into the next phase. We're being invited into an exploration with the Institute of Aliveness, and invited to offer some workshops. So that's going to be happening in the summer solstice with the upcoming Creativity Festival that we're doing in partnership with the Design Science Studio. And this is a little glimpse into what I'm going to be offering, is a little overview of how we look at the past and the way we think about the present and feel the senses of the present as a way to gain a kind of co-creative collective proprioception of what the future might be. So if you just want to join us in this time of exploring these ideas and being able to see some of my friend's works, my friend Veronica Anderson is also offering a presentation on inner and outer architecture. So we'd love it if you could join us in our exploration of the new chapter of the Design Science Studio. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Carl Welty, Hello, my friend.
Thank you so much, everybody, and so much humanity. it's really impressive. And I also thank you for Will and I have some great conversations with Richard Donovan, which I look forward to working with him to finish or move this project forward. My work, it seems very technical, but feel very strongly that natural systems, passive solar, is not only efficient, but a way of connecting human beings to nature and to each other. So my mission is nature-based zero energy air conditioning. Why air conditioning? Today, air conditioning accounts for 17% of global electricity consumption. Air conditioning is 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and refrigeration leaks adds an additional 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions. By 2050, energy for air conditioning is expected to increase 6 times. So air conditioning is extremely important for our future. Nature-based cooling works because the nighttime the temperature of space is 455 degrees below -455 degrees Fahrenheit. Space cold's temperature extracts heat from the earth, buildings, and air in dry climates. Let me move my California summer nighttime temperature is dependably 25 to 30 degrees cooler than daytime temperatures. Existing concrete buildings so the potential of this case study is to show that existing concrete buildings within 30 miles of the coast can be kept cool without air conditioning and the energy required for their air conditioning. A few examples of passive solar house I designed in Santa Monica that clients have used zero energy for thermal comfort. A tremendous project in Davis, California, that's in a much hotter part of California. People still are living without air conditioning, and Village Homes demonstrates the potential of integrating the landscape with an energy design strategy. A tremendously inspiring project by an old professor of mine is a synagogue in San Luis Obispo that was finished in 2007 that was built without air conditioning. And without air conditioning means no refrigerant leaks and zero energy for cooling, and yet the building is kept cooler than conventional buildings. Why focus on concrete buildings, existing concrete buildings? There are thousands of concrete buildings built in California before the 1970s and energy requirements, and they almost all are uninsulated concrete. This sort of inspired by the idea that the greenest building is the new building not built. So showing how to retrofit existing buildings to be energy efficient and net zero energy is, I think, very important. The energy efficiency of concrete buildings. Typical concrete buildings are not insulated. The insulation value of concrete, I mean, concrete has no R value, no insulation. So a typical concrete wall has an R value. How we measure insulation is 0.6 to 1.2. Today, the minimum R value required in residential structures is R21. So concrete buildings are not at all energy efficient. Typical concrete buildings, just to set an example of concrete walls, it's very easy to start to retrofit concrete buildings to be more energy efficient by working with the idea that concrete is not an insulation, but it's a great thermal mass. It stores heat energy for summer, in the summer for cooling, in the winter for heating. The mechanism or the process for retrofitting a building is adding very lightweight insulated metal panels, which have an R value of 78 per inch, or a 6-inch metal panel can provide up to an R48 and only weighs 3 pounds. So it's very light and very easy to add to buildings without any structural implications. lessons from ancient history, wind cooling towers and cooling domes in Persia, examples of using natural ventilation for cooling, wind catchers in India. So many lessons in ancient history. A really sort of key part in my work that sort of got me thinking about the retrofitting is right before COVID, our synagogue was talking about retrofitting an existing building built in 1962, which meets all the things I've been explaining. It's uninsulated concrete walls, and the architectural goals were to make it more energy efficient, but also to bring in natural light. And I suggested that we can solve those problems and make the building extremely energy efficient. I reached out to my old professor, Ken Haggard, and discussed this. And so this is particularly a project within 50 miles from the coast. But I was right in everything except that my guess that we could make the building 50% more energy efficient was wrong. He thought that this strategy could reduce the energy load for air conditioning by 90%. So even within 50 miles from the coast, it's the retrofitting existing concrete buildings to cool themselves is extremely sort of viable. The next steps is finding some case study buildings in Orange County. This is very typical building throughout Orange County, built before the 70s, a concrete building. And working with Richard Donovan, we're going to prepare schematic architectural drawings of existing buildings, develop drawings for retrofitting strategies, working with engineers and engineering students to design the systems in detail. And thank you very much. And it's been a really privilege to be part of this, so much humanity. And so thank you very much. And I will put these slides in the Slack and look forward to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I am definitely looking forward to reading those again. That was fascinating. Marna, are you with us and ready?
Hi, I'm Marna, Albany, New York, traditional land of the Haudenosaunee and the Mohican people. It's an amazing place to be with a deep history of peace and peacemaking. I've been working on a project with black soldier flies, raising them to eat food waste and learning about them and what they need in order to survive. They're such a friendly little creature. And as you'll notice, the wing is very, very pretty in that iridescent way that living things can be. The larvae can eat food scraps, including breads, vegetables, fruits, meats, cheeses, mold, and even poop. So that's really interesting to me. I've been on this hunch that poop might be a big missing link for a lot of our waste management and nutrient perpetuation cycles. Their poop and other waste products are nutrient dense. So there's some larvae in my hand full of what feels like a really rich nutrient dense fertilizer possibility. Adults don't eat, so they're not considered to be a pest or vector for disease. I see black soldier fly operations helping solve food waste, landfill, and methane problems, water scarcity in terms of people defaulting to societal norm where we're using poop. We're using drinking water to send our poop to far, far away. Instead, I see a remarkable possibility for developing a commons and navigating in situ. This will also help improve the watershed quality and reduce impact on marine life. So one way that this has deepened is the call with Chad, something or other, who worked on the drawdown conversation, verified for me, yeah, he's like, I wanted to put poop in the book and it was edited out. So that was a really exciting confirmation that I'm on a good track. Another deepening is realizing that I'm right in the Hudson River watershed where there's a history of GE polluting the local watershed terribly. But there also is they're taking accountability and they're doing something about it. So I'm excited to get involved in terms of a bioregional local interest in water health and well-being. So that's really exciting. So the perpetuating the nutrients helps secure the supply chain, including food security. It's a protein that doesn't require water, and it can be feed for chickens, pigs. This is another deepening. I learned fish also can flourish eating black soldier flies, obviously not as an only food, but as a protein. So that's really exciting. This also addresses fertilizer scarcity in the supply chain breakdown that we're in the midst of. The application might also be useful. This is pending, more research as far as I can tell. Could black soldier flies be useful if used intentionally to help disaster cleanup, for example, rotting cows in rural Florida after the hurricane? This is also an amazing training and employment opportunity for people of every ability, including a lot of people who are maybe less inclined to be tech savvy, to have a hands in the ground, working with food opportunity to operationalize community. So that was the end of my my slideshow last time, and part of what I've been up to since then is creating this, which is my offering in the world in terms of helping coach women in leadership positions in tech to reclaim their health and well-being, because I see that as part of the world's problem right now, is helping raise women into leadership with a good sense of trusting themselves, their intuition, and their body to know what's good and how do we move forward in a good way, and receive feedback with a regenerative growth mindset. I'm calling this approach, kind of synthesizing my two areas, regenerative leadership at this time. So internal, external, interpersonal, regenerative technologies and strategies. And the latest celebration is that tonight I was part of this map over here, and I felt really good about that because it feels like it echoes my interests. And another way I like to look at the tree, the wisdom tree, is that not only are the arms of the tree reaching up, out, and around, but down, round, and up with the roots, but there's a way that the whole field comes together. Which when we do it in the human system, it's called growth. When we do it in the interpersonal system, it's called community. And thank you, everybody. It's just been such a wonderful opportunity to be part of this. And it almost feels like this is not really the end, it's just the beginning. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And 100% just the beginning. And so finally, Stephen, leave it. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Oh, wow. Like Space Camp. I didn't know that this existed. And I think so many more people need to know about not only the work of Buckminster Fuller, but the Buckminster Fuller Institute. And these projects are incredible. And as was said earlier, there's been this kind of like, I've noticed that, the problem is people don't know about the inspiring things that are happening that can actually give us hope for the future. And so it's 5 minutes is not a lot of time to present, but 2 hours is a long time to sit and listen to 20 people present. So what I decided to do, since I love podcasting and I love going deep and I love exploring multiple topics, I decided to launch a podcast for the Space Camp missions, and it is called the Spaceship Earth Mission Log Podcast. So I have recorded the first episode. Over the next 8 weeks, we are going to be recording more. And so if you hosted a mission and you haven't yet reached out to me, I'd love to schedule you in the next 6 or 7 weeks and get you on deck to record. We've been doing video. The first one's been recorded. I recorded Bobby Fishkin, and we talked about the solar punk future, and it was absolutely inspiring and a whole lot of fun. So if you go to spaceshipearthmissionlog.substack.com, I put the link in the chat. Please go subscribe right now so you can get notified when we have new ones. It's also on YouTube. So if you go there, you can get the video version of the podcast. There's an audio version as well. I will be probably launching that onto iTunes later if you want to get that on there for, an audio format for podcast. But I just wanted to give a sincere thank you to the Buckminster Fuller Institute, to Faith and Will for the Space Camp. And there's been a song that's kind of been the like the theme song of my space camp this time around on climate stabilization. If I can find the chat, I'll drop it in. And so I'd encourage you after the call to go listen to it. It's, if you're in the YouTube live, you can go Google it. Peter Gabriel singing Down to Earth. And that was in the movie WALL-E. And so I dropped that link in the chat. Go give that a listen. That's been like my theme song. And I have to give a shout out to my favorite mission from the last space camp, which was earthsongs.world. Carrie Wynn's project. And the reason that's near and dear to my heart is because I'm a musician, I'm a music producer. And Carrie told me, you know, how do we change the world? You know, how do communities and how does social change happen? Well, it's been through music historically. So she's made a whole meta genre of music. So just to me, the potential for systems change in so many nodes is mind-boggling. And so I'd love to, you know, over the next 6 weeks, if you're 8 weeks, if you're subscribed, you can, you know, at your leisure, go deeper with us and also meet the fantastic participants of Space Camp, because we also talk about their stories and what Bobby's doing with Crowd Doing. It's incredible work, and we all need to interact with each other and connect. So please reach out to each other beyond Space Camp. And this is not goodbye, but it's goodbye for now. And I can't wait for the next one. So again, I'm Stephen Levitt, and I have my own podcast called The Language of Creativity, if you want to go check that out. But the mission, Space Camp mission log is now live. So check it out. Thank you.
That's great. I mean, I'm just smiling listening to you talk. So I'm definitely excited to listen to all of those. Thank you, everyone who spoke and who has been a part of, well, one, leading the missions, but also helping to make them as impactful as we've all just heard now. So yeah, big love from me for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Stephen was just saying. I mean, this has been so incredibly inspiring for the last 8 weeks, and it's inspired people like Stephen to create an entirely new podcast based on the missions that have been launched over the last 2 years. Honestly, we have a whole archive of beautiful missions and beautiful videos and films, and a media library of incredible frameworks and tools and ideas that have been shared over the last 2 years. So I just want to say this is bye for now. It's not bye for good. And I just wanted to give everybody a huge round of applause that has worked on a mission and that has continued to engage with Trimtab Space Camp and has continued to share their ideas. Our chat logs over the last 2 years have been just so rich and so deep. And I'm going to bring up one more person to the spotlight, Felicia, because she has continued to work on the cooperating manual. And I think there's a really, really beautiful opportunity here to share some of these resources. So we just want to say a deep bow of gratitude to all of you who have been part of this community and have shared your work and your life and have cross-pollinated and continue to build your projects beyond these courses. So I'm going to conclude this portion of Facebook Live.